YouTube. I will be sharing the link shortly. I would like to welcome you all for today's interaction. Thanks for joining in from different time zones of US. And today is really a special day for us because, sorry. Please, everyone, please keep yourself on mute. Everyone, please mute yourself, please. Okay. Welcome everyone, and thank you, Vinayji, for giving us time. I know it's a very early morning in India, and I would like to welcome all the student community who is joining from United States, uh, people from the US-India Friendship Council. And today's event is very special in the sense that we all have been away from home, and when there are festivals, when there is any cultural occasions, we often feel homesick, we often feel very nostalgic, and it's the appropriate time to dive deep and understand the value of our culture, our civilization, and how all strengthen us as well as the community which lives around us. So with that motto in our minds and heart, we had this thought that we should talk to Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe ji. And before I introduce our speaker today, I would like to uh, have some introduction of some people who have joined us on the call as well. We have Dr. Bharat Bharai, who is the chairman of Medical Board, State of Indiana, chairman of the US-India Friendship Council, and the advisory board of World Hindu Council of America. Dr. has been a strong pillar of Indian American community for past 45 years. We also have Neerav Patel, who is the president of Chicago chapter Hindu Council of America, and he's a businessman and is involved in community for past 15 years. He's also dedicated nation and serves as a board member of US India Friendship Council. We have Mr. Amitabh, who is the General Secretary of Hindu Council of America, and he's an active in Indian American community for past 30 years. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. And I think Dr. Bharat Bharai also joined us. We will be coming back to him later. So without taking much time, let me introduce our speaker for today. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe ji is an Indian politician and member of Parliament of India representing state of Maharashtra in the Rajya Sabha. He is also serving as National Vice President of Bharatiya Janata Party. Mr. Sahasrabuddhe has been appointed as President of Indian Council for Cultural Relation by President of India. Dr. Sahasrabuddhe is Honorary Director of the Public Policy Research Center. He started his public life with Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, a student organization which ideologically connected with Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. He has also served as General Secretary of SEAL, the Student Experience in Interstate Living, which is a cultural exchange program between northeastern Indian state and different metropolitan cities in the world. I still remember when I was a kid, we used to get students from SEAL who used to come to Delhi and they used to stay at our house. So because now when we live in West, we really miss that kind of a culture and environment. So Vinayji, I will pass it on to you.
Thank you, Tushar, and thanks Neerav Patel and all the office bearers of this Friendship Council. And it's really a pleasure and a privilege as well to speak with all of you, so many young Indians who have made America their home and who are wanting to understand about the cultural dimension of India's soft power, if I may describe it that way. I'll basically be speaking for about 20 minutes or so. And first of all, we will try to understand the concept of soft power and how culture plays a key role in it. And then what are the cultural dimensions or several facets of the cultural relationship uh, kind of a thing, the concept of cultural relationship between the two countries. And then lastly, I would also reflect upon as how non-resident Indians, we can contribute in this entire cultural relationship development or evolution. And in that context, if I may start with what exactly is soft power. Maybe you're aware that the emergence of the term soft power was in 1990s, and the reason was uh, Dr. Joseph Nye, who was that time director of the Kennedy School of Government. He wrote a book about soft power, and there he has elaborated the concept of soft power. Now, as a student of international relations, it would be worthwhile understanding as to why this concept emerged in 1990 and not earlier, although soft power was there much earlier. I mean, although it was conceptualized in a more academic manner in 1990, the soft power as such, we may not be referring it in that way, but was already there. I'll give you an example. For example, in the 15th century, if voyagers set out to look to locate where India is, it was because of the soft power. Columbus and later on Vasco da Gama decided to locate where exactly India is. It was because of the scarcity of the supply of spices from India. And what spices are? Spices are, I believe, an ingredient of India's soft power. And therefore, soft power as such was earlier as well there. Or say, for example, Yuan Sung and Fahian and Al-Biruni and several such people decided to visit India because India was a knowledge society, very recognized knowledge society at that point of time. And therefore, they wanted to visit India. So that attraction about India was again a kind of indication of India's very strong soft power. But still, it took 1990 to have this particular concept crystallized in a more academic manner in 1990s, because I believe as a student, if I may try to analyze, there were at least a couple of reasons. One reason was, as you would appreciate, it was about 40 years after the Second World War. And the realization which had dawned in the minds of the heads of states was that conventional war is a thing of the past. If you want to influence the world opinion, you need not conquer geographical spaces, geographical land, but you have to basically influence the thinking and the mindset of the global community. And therefore, instead of occupying geographical space, the emphasis shifted to occupy what we today call as mind space. And there lies the importance of soft power. Maybe you also must have traveled a lot in various parts of the globe, but where I was in Beijing, I found that the entire city of Beijing was in fact like any American city. Only thing is that the difference was that of the language. So it was a Mandarin America kind of. And I had the same experience when I was in Tel Aviv. I found that it's a Hebrew America. So what Thomas Friedman had said is in his famous book about flattening of the world is very much there. And therefore, this in a way it was an indication of the American soft power, if I may say so. And therefore, when we try to decipher the concept of soft power, we also have to take into consideration that by the end of 80s or early 90s rather, the world also saw end of Cold War between the former USSR and the America. And therefore, in that context also, it was thought perhaps by Joseph Nye to reflect upon the emerging concept of soft power in a more academic manner. Insofar as India is concerned, I believe what are the ingredients of India's soft power is something very critical for all of us to understand. I believe only a couple of days back when I was interacting with some foreign correspondents in the Foreign Correspondents Club in Delhi, some people asked me as to, would you like India to be seen as a military power when we talk about superpower, or would you like India to see as an economic power? Well, of course, to be an economic power or to be a military power, it's certainly very important these days. But as a student of international relations, my understanding is that India was, and India should be a super cultural power. One may say a super soft power, because we are more capable of becoming that or leading the world in the present uh, crisis of various dimensions. And therefore, the idea of India's cultural relations with every other country is something very, very important. When I look at the ingredients of India's soft power, I believe there are at least 5 things which we need to understand as to why people are curious about India. And one thing I must tell over here, that mostly in all parts of the globe, every nook and corner of the globe, if I may say so, India is respected, India is loved. There are few exceptions to that, but generally speaking, there are there is no country where Indians are hated or Indians are not liked by the people over there. But this goodwill, although is critical, it is important, I'm sure you would appreciate, is not enough. We have to convert this goodwill into what is called as understanding of India. If people don't understand what India is, what the idea of India is, then I believe we cannot achieve uh, any kind of evolution, effective evolution of India's soft power. And in that context, I believe 5 things are very, very important. First of all, I'll reflect on them, and then I would also suggest as to how, as NRI community members, we can contribute to the soft power of India. What are these basic 5 ingredients? I mean, of course, they come from the history of India and also the identity of India as a civilization. One thing is that India, since times immemorial, was never a country seen as an aggressor country. There is no evidence to suggest that Indian kings and Indian monarchs went abroad and tried to usurp the power over there. When even Bhagwan Rama went there in Sri Lanka and defeated Ravana, he didn't establish his own regime over there. He handed over the reins to Vibhishana, as we know. And therefore, being a non-aggressor country is one of the key features of India's identity, which attracts the global community in present day climate of conflict and competition as well. Secondly, India is essentially a spiritual democracy. When I say spiritual democracy, I mean that India was never a theocratic state, and never ever India allowed any particular way of worship to be monopolistic and to be hegemonic kind of. We always believed in Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, which is all paths to reach up to the ultimate spiritual satisfaction are equally valid. And therefore, we never said that this is the only way to reach up to the supreme element. We always said that all other ways are equally valid and equally respectable. And therefore, the spiritual democracy characteristic of our civilization, our culture, it's something very critical, first of all, to understand and to tell the global community. The third thing is that we are essentially, we were and we are, and I said we can be a knowledge society. We know how visitors like Fahian and UN Sangha referred to visited India. We know about the Nalanda and Takshashila and the Vijayanagar Empire as well. And we also know that today also in several key corporate houses, Indians are providing the leadership, the knowledge leadership essentially. And therefore, the India becoming a knowledge society or India continuing to be a knowledge society is the third important feature of our soft power potential. The fourth one is our social system, our family system, wherein we have defined in a very scientific manner the relationship of an individual with the society. There are communist countries wherein the dominant theme is that society is everything and individual is nothing. While in American culture, for example, individual is everything and society is only secondary. Whereas in India, there is some equanimity, there is some act of balancing between the importance of an individual, where individuality is recognized, but at the same time, individual identity is a part of the social identity, is what we have been underscoring. And therefore, we say the relationship of an individual with a society is like that of a part of the body with the entire body. And this definition of relationship, I believe, it's something very, very critical in today's climate, where individualism is, in a way, becoming kind of a challenge in many societies. I mean, ultra individualism or extreme individualism. And therefore, this is something very important. Uh, I would also add that the last feature of India's soft power, which comes from our worldview, our philosophy, our approach, is about the way we relate with Mother Nature. We never said that we want to conquer over nature. We always want to have a kind of a more harmonious relationship with Mother Nature, and therefore sustainability and things like that are perhaps more appreciated by our ancestors, and therefore this is an important element of India's soft power. Now, all these elements require to be manifested through various dimensions of soft power. And what are these dimensions? I believe it's a whole range of issues through which these require to be manifested. I mean, they are being manifested, but we require to underscore the need to have them manifested, because only then people, the global community, would be able to understand what India is. I mean, it starts from our epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, which have their continued influence over the global community in various parts of the globe. It's not confined only to Southeast Asia, for that matter. At the same time, Indian arts, Indian music, whether it is Indian classical dances, Indian classical music, or even Bollywood music, for example, or Bollywood films, are a source of continuing influence over the global community. And therefore, that also we will have to take into consideration. Also important are Indian culinary and cuisine traditions. I mean, I haven't come across any owner of an Indian restaurant who is making a business, who has opened some kind of a hotel or restaurant abroad, is facing any financial crisis. All are making brisk business, because Indian cuisines and Indian culinary traditions are extremely popular in the entire global community everywhere in the world. So that is also an important aspect of India's soft power. At the same time, India has produced several universal heroes, and there is a whole long list. For example, it starts with Mahatma Gautam Buddha, and then Guru Nanak, and then we also know how Swami Vivekananda influenced the global community in the world religions, the Congress of World Religions. Then comes, of course, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, the only Nobel laureate from India who was rewarded through this Nobel Prize for Literature. And of course, we cannot forget about Mahatma Gandhi, who is a universally acclaimed national, international, or universal hero kind of. And therefore, these are also extremely important parts of India's soft power. Now, when we want to build upon this soft power, the first thing comes to my mind is the NRI community as cultural ambassadors should make extra efforts to have a proper understanding about India evolved in the community where we stay. Because India comes across as an enigma, as something kind of a riddle, which people are perplexed because they cannot understand. For example, in India, when we observe some fast as a part of our worship, and then there are people who eat all kinds of delicacies and desserts, again, as a part of their worship. This appears very contradictory to the people, but then we have to tell them that we have complete democratic approach, liberal approach, and therefore we are not into straitjacketing that this is the only way to worship God. And therefore, all these things require to be taken to the community wherein we are staying. I don't know. I mean, there are groups of Indians staying in America and other parts of the globe where they can, and I'm sure some of them are already into it. They need to uh, make some efforts, some activities which will connect ourselves with the community in which we are staying, and in the process enhance the literacy about India in the community. Otherwise, I believe it becomes kind of a ghettoization wherein we meet our own people and relish into all kinds of nostalgic thing, which is understandable, perhaps, but then it may not achieve the purpose, and therefore this is something very, very critical, as I understand. In that context, for example, our Indian Council for Cultural Relations is already working towards establishing a platform through which we would be reaching out to the global community and they would be able to learn about various facets of Indian culture. We are going to start a platform called Universalization of Traditional Indian Knowledge Systems, which is UTICS. And through that platform, we are going to help the global community understand various facets of Indian culture. There will be short courses like we have in Coursera or edX on, say, Rangoli or Mehendi or maybe Indian wedding ceremonies and various facets of it, why certain rituals are observed, or Indian wildlife, Indian flora and fauna, Constitution of India, universal heroes produced by India, so on and so forth. In that context also, I would say that people who are in America or who are the members of the NRI community, young minds, very creatively talented, they can, I'm sure, contribute and they can suggest, and we can have various versions of it as well, depending upon where exactly we are staying. And therefore, in this context, I believe the NRI community can contribute hugely and become a kind of not just an ambassador, but an active ambassador who reflects on various facets of Indian culture. First, tries to understand them on his own or her own, and then explain it to the people there so that they can understand India and they can appreciate the fundamental values that are associated with Indian culture. So my only plea to all our friends there, various very active friends, young friends, talented friends, that please reach out to the people. Please explain them as to what exactly India is. Encourage them to visit India. And that this is very, very critical. As we know, when President Obama visited India, I mean, his approach towards India before his visit and after his visit, there is a marked difference. And therefore, India is an experience. India requires to be visited to understand India. I can give one example. I came across a German student who had come over here for just about a week. And then he spent more than 2 months in India. And when I discussed it with him, he said, India is, I mean, he talked about all negative things, including garbage and littering, and then traffic and the lack of traffic discipline, and so on and so forth. And you can imagine what kind of bad impression he must have carried. But he said, still, I extended my stay in India because I loved India. And then I asked, what exactly attracted you? He said, because the poorest of the poor person in India also has the glitter of aspirations in his eyes, which is not the case in Western world. I don't know whether it is correct or not, or whether he is right or not, but then it makes a point, and therefore we need to appreciate that. There is an example of an Indian teacher who migrated to America, and now he is teaching over there, our Karyakarta only, and he shared one of his experiences with me. Having shared it with you, uh, I will come to an end of my presentation, and then we can engage in conversation. He told me that once he came across a American kid, a class 11 student, maybe adolescent, in his classroom. And while he was conducting the class, the boy used to doze a lot and sleep in between. Now, of course, our Indian teacher tried to wake him up by reaching up to him and then keeping his hand on his shoulder and tried to wake him up. It happened for 5, 6 times. At the seventh time, the boy got up and in a very polite but firm manner told the teacher that, sir, teaching is your job. Whether to listen to your lecture or not is a question of my liberty. So please don't disturb me. Allow me to sleep. Of course, in an individualistic society, one can argue in this way. Our teacher got perplexed, but he didn't argue with him. But later on, he tried to engage in a dialogue with him. And after several efforts, he succeeded. And the boy told him that, sir, I'm sleeping, I'm dozing off in the classroom because I work in a McDonald's outlet kind of, and I'm compelled to do that because in my family there is some disturbance. My mother has now engaged with a new person. So this new father doesn't want me to be staying in the same home. So I'm trying to hire one apartment, small studio apartment. But for that, I will have to earn some money, will have to save some money. And I'm into that currently, which is why I'm working in a McDonald's outlet between 10 in the night and 3 a.m. early morning. So I come my home at around 4 o'clock, and therefore it's humanly impossible for me to remain awake when I attend the class at 11 a.m. And lastly, the boy told him, but sir, let me share with you that since you have come from India, you have had the curiosity to understand and find a solution to my problem. Perhaps no American teacher will do that. Again, I don't want to reflect on American society. That is not a reason. Point is how Indians can make a difference if we continue with our traditional values with which we have grown. And those values, those ideas, those facets of India's philosophy eventually are one of the core of the Indian soft power. And in that context, I believe there is much more to build upon. With this, I'll end my presentation and we can engage in a conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vinayji. I think our audience is quite motivated with some of your thoughts because we have been receiving a lot of questions and comments. Um, Before we proceed to Q&A, I would like Dr. Bharat Barai, he also joined us. Bharatji, are you able to, can you unmute yourself? I would like Dr. Bharat Barai to say a few words because he has to leave for some engagement. Bharatji.
Namaste.
Namaste, Bharatji.
Vinayji, friends.
Namaste, namaste.
This was a very inspiring talk from Vinayji. Many of the points that he covered about our culture and what the culture means and how we spread it to other parts is very true. And even President Clinton, when he was president, he has said that what he loves about India and Indians is their culture. Now, the culture can be defined in many ways, and Vinayji has already said that. But how do we share that culture with our friends? Remember, 1 out of every 6 person in this world is Indian or mostly Hindu. Till 1947, except for occasional trips like Swami Vivekanand, our culture was locked up within Bharatvarsh. We were not allowed to go out for almost 600 years. So the renaissance that happened and the spread that occurred of the Western civilization, we did not get that benefit. But now we have the benefits. Our people now have migrated to United States, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, many English-speaking countries, but also some of the other non-English speaking countries. Some are in Africa, some are in South America too. So mixing with them, let me tell you what we do in Northwest Indiana, which serves as a sort of crucible. Once a year in the spring, we have the spring gala. The professionals, the doctors, the engineers, the IT people, and educationists, we invite local people, both from the university, from the businesses, from the political field. We have this dinner with them and we present cultural program. At that time, we have auction item of Indian made things. So, and of course, we serve the Indian food. So they all become gradually interested more and more, and gradually they start knowing us. And especially when we show friendship, understanding, and the respect for our friends and neighbors. As George Oppenheimer used to say, if my neighbor is happy, I am happy. For Indians, we extend it further. If my family is happy, if my friends are happy, if my neighbors are happy, and if my neighborhood is happy, that is my culture, and I am happy about it. So trying to share our knowledge, our expertise, and to a degree our wealth and our volunteerism for people surrounding us, I think that will help spread our culture further. The other thing that we need to do, which I want to make a point, recently elections have gone, and I'm not trying to talk about politics, I'm talking about our culture, our adaptive culture, that Vinayji mentioned for 5,000 years, India has never invaded anybody. And many of the people who came from abroad, we assimilated them into the Indian society. And now time has come that at least somebody with Hindu genes and Hindu blood is going to be in administration as vice president. Whether we agree with her philosophy politically or with Biden, as a part of our assimilation of the culture and being part of the mainstream, we should join the political process. 4 years from now, there will be different president, doesn't matter. It's part of us getting assimilated into the public life of United States. That's where we also need to extend our culture. And I'm glad to see that many of the young Hindu Americans are on the Capitol Hill, and their training in the public life of USA should become part of our culture, because democracy is part of our culture, and participating in the democracy here should also be part of our culture. The next point I want to make is about how, as NRIs, besides spreading the culture, we can help people of India. We all should act as ambassador of India here. And whenever issues come up which are of importance to India, which our friends don't understand here, many times either they have political motives or they don't have understanding, then we all have to stand up as ambassador of India. For example, the issues that came up about the CAA, about Kashmir, about Article 370, it's not the job of government of India. Government may do its job. It's our job as cultural ambassadors of India to tell our friends, get educated, and in many cities we have done it. And just a couple of days ago, we had that meeting. Amitabh had arranged it, and Niravji and Siddesh. And we explained to the chairman of the cultural committee of City of Chicago, where some people were bringing resolutions against India. And it is the Indians, we as our volunteers, nobody asked us to do it. We do it because we think this is what really happened. So I would urge all of you to act as cultural as well as, and it's part of culture to explain what really is happening, what is happening to the Hindu girls, how they are being abducted, how they are being forcibly converted. So the human rights part, we have to explain. And the other part is to help economically. For India to grow, many of the things that are produced in India, how do we promote it? We find a lot of things that are made in China everywhere. And I ask myself, why not made in India? So we should try to help and work with both governments as well as non-government agency to try to promote things that are made in India, not just the doctors made in India or the engineers made in India or IT people in India, the products that are manufactured in India. And that will also help, especially the people who make handicraft, things that are very uniquely produced in India, so that this economic revolution reaches the small people, small villages in India. So that is my perception. And namaste, I'll have to leave at 8:42 because of other program.
Thank you, Bharatji. It's always a pleasure talking to you as young people who are studying now in US and eventually starting their professional career. You are one of those examples who have served Indian community in US for so many years. So thanks for joining us. So Vinayji, I would like to kind of shift our gears and move towards more Q&A round. And we have received different variety of questions, and what you have mentioned is very important for the overall narrative building exercise, which as Indians we want to strive for, and we face real challenges in that domain. So the first question, I will ask the person to unmute themselves and ask that question to Vinayji. So the first question here is by Srinivas. Srini, please go ahead.
Yes. Namaste, everyone. Um,
Please be a little loud. We can't hear
yeah,
you properly.
sorry. Namaste, everyone. My name is Srinivasa Ramanujam. I'm doing a PhD in University of Massachusetts at Amherst. I had a question regarding the presentation of the spiritual aspect of what India is. Like you said, Ekam Sat Vipraha Baudha Vadanti. That is true, but there are certain things in the culture which are common across everything else. For example, the Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. These are things that are very difficult to translate when it comes to translating them to a non-Indic language. We say Dharayati iti dharmaha. If you translate it to Tamil, you can say Aram. And we have literature that supports it and literature that talks about it. That is not the case when we come out of India. So when we talk about these words get misrepresented. So take the example of the word karma, for example, right? Karma is severely misrepresented, and they've added it to the English language. It almost feels like a cultural digestion uh, when it comes to this. Um, so how can we overcome such a situation? Um, because it's very easy to say dharma is righteousness, but it's much beyond that. It's something that sustains the world. So how do we? And there are millions of such words. It's not just that. So
Thanks, Srinivas. I will request everyone to keep questions short so that we can accommodate more questions. So, Vinayji, over to you.
Well, I think when we are dealing with commoners, our friends or our associates in a workplace, it is not always essential to delve so deep into the philosophical questions of dharma, artha, kama, moksha. I'm not saying that we should be avoiding that discussion, but it need not start with these questions. I mean, after all, one thing which I must mention over here, that people will assess Indian culture by the way we conduct ourselves in a foreign land. And therefore, our own behavior, our acharana, as what we say in Sanskrit, is going to be the indicator of the values that we adhere to or we claim to be adhering. And therefore, before we reach up to the philosophical discussion of defining dharma, artha, kama, moksha, which should not be a big deal as such. I mean, it is not confined only to four things. You can add some five, six. I mean, Indian views are extremely open, resilient, and flexible. So it continues with the, I mean, in India, we keep on saying, Nitya Nutana Chira Puratana. So we are renewing ourselves every other day. And therefore, there is nothing like moribund. It's only about, if somebody wants to say, oh, no, it's not four Purusharthas, there are six Purusharthas. Doesn't matter. There is no, I mean, we are open to that. That the point that I'm trying to make is, and therefore, dharma is righteousness, is all goodness, is all being benevolent, being dutiful, being concerned, being sensitive. All these things are dharma in a way. The way a human being should be conducting himself or herself is dharma. And the duties that the society, that the surroundings, even insofar as nature is concerned, that expect us to be discharging is dharma in that context. Same about artha, kama, and moksha also. I mean, these are not terms which we really cannot decipher and connect them to the present day social and cultural surroundings. So I think we can be attempting to do that. There are various treatises, several books and volumes which philosophers have explained, tried to explain all these things. So we can definitely refer to them. But I would suggest that we need not reach up to that philosophical discussion right at the beginning. We can only tell them what exactly, how Indian religion or Indian spiritual thoughts are very resilient, accommodative, which is why we have sustained all these centuries in spite of attacks and aggressions by various forces. As what they say, kya baat hai ki hasti mitati nahi hamari. It is this.
Correct. Thank you, Vinayji. Next question is from Tanuja Saha from Princeton University. Tanuja, just a brief introduction and very short,
Yes, I'll be as short as possible. So, Namaste Vinayji. This is Tanujay. I'm doing my PhD in electrical engineering from Princeton. So, I had a question that, like, what is the government and bodies like ICCR doing to make the Westerners aware about different aspects of our cultural diversity, like the culinary aspects, the different dance forms, the different forms of music and things like this that are not available to everyone trivially.
Well, as I said, unfortunately, all these years, I'm not finding fault, but that has been a very perverted thinking so far that culture means only dance and music and things like that, which is not the case. And therefore, at ICCR, we have for the first time broadened the very definition of culture. For example, last year we conducted seminars on Indian democracy at 8 different cities all over the globe. And therefore, that understanding about the Indian democratic approach or Indian democratic traditions, where even kings would consider themselves as public servants and not just masters or owners of the kingdom. So this particular aspect also requires to be taken to the people, apart from all other facets. But I would say that all these are manifestations of Indian philosophical thought. That is the core of the whole thing, which we need not be forgetting. For example, there are several mudras in Bharatanatyam or in Kathakali, but every other mudra has a philosophical underpinning to that. If we don't understand that, how can we explain it to the people? So first of all, as it happens, as they say, try to understand ourselves and then try to explain what we are. So in that process, I believe there is much more to do for the government and for the non-government also. And I must say it over here, although this may be misconstrued, but even with this vulnerability attached to that, I must say that the job of making India understood by the people, by the global community, cannot be left to government alone. Yes. Government is woefully short in making it happen because government has its own way. I mean, has its own style of functioning. And therefore, it is for the NRI community, for all of us who so very passionately want to do that, we need to be reaching out to the people. And for example, can we think of conducting an Understanding India course? It can be an online course, it can be an offline course, and it can be explaining all facets of Indian philosophy, Indian history, Indian traditions, and all manifestations of Indian culture, including art, dance, fine arts, or Indian sculpture, Indian architecture, everything, whatever you want to say. It can be just a month-long introduction to the idea of India. And I'm sure there are so very talented people amongst even the audience which is here listening to me, who can come together and conceive that course. Why do we require government and bodies like ICCR? I would say these embassies cannot do anything. I'm sorry to say so, but let us not expect from them, because they have their own bureaucratic approaches and things like that. And therefore, we need to make it a mission undertaken by all of us collectively and conducted in a very professional manner. That is also required. I mean, professionalism is something which we miss out at various occasions. And let us establish that, and that Indians could be very professionally conducting these kinds of academic programs as well.
Thank you, Vinayji, for pointing that out, because one of the mandate we run as a Indian overseas scholars and student group, and we have right now representation from major US schools, Singapore, and different parts of the globe. And this is what we have been doing, trying to engage ourselves, step out of comfort zone, and not rely much on resources, this and that. We can start from wherever we have and wherever we are. So that's a very, very important point. Moving next, we have Arvind Swamiji. Please go ahead with your question.
Namaste, Vinayji. I also function as the Director of Administration at Hindu University of America. So from that perspective, I wanted to know a little more about how ICCR works with NRI-led institutions across the world to extend the influence and soft power of Bharat. And also, if you could tell us a little bit about how institutions like the Hindu University of America can partner with ICCR in this regard? That will be very helpful.
Well, two things. First of all, whatever the skewed approach of the earlier regimes, NRIs were never considered as a group of people who as human resource could be taken advantage of in spreading Indian culture. And therefore, in ICCR, there were so many weird rules which disallowed us from engaging with the NRI community because somewhere the mandate suggested that, oh no, we are not for NRI communities, we are for the residents of those countries there, original Americans or things like that. But then we have changed it and we would like to engage more with the NRI communities. In fact, when it comes to sending teachers for yoga or maybe Bharatanatyam, it is not required that we should be deporting them from India, sending them from India. You guys there are so many talented artists there who can perform, who can teach Bharatanatyam. They are practicing all these Indian dances. Even insofar as yoga is concerned, why should an Indian person should be coming to Chicago and teach yoga? Many of you are already practitioners of yoga. And therefore, we would like to build upon these human resources, which were unfortunately not on the agenda of ICCR so far. There is a major policy shift, and we are going to do that. In fact, insofar as Indian cultural centers are concerned, why should the government always keep on investing? Because, as I said, it may not always be very productive. It depends upon the person that we appoint and his level of motivation. But NRI community also can come together. We are here to support. We can provide every other support, for example, sending books for the library, or maybe conducting some courses, providing some teachers or some tutorials. That can be done. But all other things, which are administrative things, wherein most of the government energy gets lost, unfortunately. And there is almost zero element of any creative talent that sustains itself over there. And therefore, we are willing, more proactively engaging with the NRI communities. You also can come out with some ideas. Nirav Patelji was talking to me about artisans. There are so very talented artisans in India, whether it is pottery or woodwork or even carpets or weaving, textile. Recently, this was also never a part of ICCR agenda. For the first time, we conducted an international seminar on weaving relations, textile traditions to mark 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. And 12 countries represented with their master craftsmen who are into traditional design and everything. We can have exchange of designs, exchange of technology, exchange of market opportunities. Everything can happen. But then, as I said, it needs to be taken out of the bureaucratic approach, which is everywhere when it comes to government. And therefore, we are all for greater and closer engagement with the NRI community. In fact, we can, insofar as artisans and their beautifully crafted products are concerned, we are going to go extra mile. Tell us what exactly we can do. And there are a whole lot of artisans from Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra and Bengal and everywhere who are ready to keep all their artifacts ready to be sent abroad and to be explored in the markets abroad.
Thank you, Vinayji. I would like to add here that I know a lot of my friends in Canada who participated in, I think, 500th anniversary of Guru Nanak Ji, which was hosted by ICCR a couple of years ago. So sometimes there are exchange programs and those things, if we can get more info about that, then that will be great. And I guess ICCR Facebook page shares a lot of that relevant information. Maybe
Tushar, I'll just interrupt you for a minute because there are many young students over here. We are conceiving an idea. For example, University of Illinois can engage with, say, University of Mumbai, and ICCR can play the role of bringing them together. And what we can do is see all the talented students of University of Illinois, rank holders especially. Maybe you can shortlist first 10 students from various faculties, and they are going to be sitting on some decision-making table in the days to come. Either they will go to the World Bank or to the United Nations, or they may be somebody in a big corporate house or in the government in America. And therefore, it is very critical, very important for us to engage with them and to make them understand the idea of India. So, through an agreement, we can have these 10 students visiting India for a 10-day Understanding India program. They can take care of their to and fro travel expenses, but their stay in India could be supported by some university or by the ICCR, in which there will be an element of 2-day family stay. so that they can understand Indian society and Indian families and Indian values as well, and they can go back. Similarly, Americans or the University of Illinois would definitely love to engage with 10 students from Mumbai University. Why not?
Correct.
And they could be again taken to America. They can stay over there. Again, the same arrangement, travel expenses taken care of by them, and stay, accommodation, everything by the host country. And we can work, it can work wonders, because it is in mutual interest to have these people becoming more literate about the country that they are supposed to visit.
Vinayji, what you said brought
that,
like
in that matter, I want to say something that if this kind of program and any student have some problem about their traveling accommodation or something, US-India Friendship Council can sponsor some of their ticket value or something. So we are all ready for that.
No, you come out with some proposal. We have universities here ready and
Vinayji,
willing to engage with some arrangement.
We had our group group call a couple of weeks ago, and one of the key topic was what you are saying, and that's why it brings smiles to our face, because Princeton University here, Lead India Group, is actually leading one proposal which actually exactly talks about what you are mentioning. So we are compiling the final proposal, and we will definitely try to send it across to you.
It should be ready by this December or something, right, Tushar?
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you. So Aftansji, can you please ask your question next?
Namaste Vinayji, namaste Tushar and Prakash and everybody else for giving us the opportunity. I am in part of the INDIC Academy, which is incorporated as Indica Inc. USA. And Vinayji, we also have several. We seek to build a global renaissance based on Indic civilizational thoughts, and we have several platforms. And one of the platforms we have is the Center for Soft Power. So we have a lot of synergy that we can work with. And my question is that we are, if for the last several decades, perhaps, we are in the process of gaining the agency that we have lost in representing our own thought or ourselves, whether it's an Indian thought or whether it's a Hindu thought, right? For various reasons, we have lost it, and we are in the process of regaining that agency. And I know you are saying that government, for whatever reason, not expect much, but I'm going to press you on that because you're part of the government. Okay, I can say that they're not able to help, but how can they not negatively impact our efforts in creating those values systems that we are talking about, whether it's soft power or any other things?
Well, if you come out with certain specific issues wherein the government is impacting it negatively, and I cannot doubt the ability of government or the bureaucracy rather to do that, and therefore I am conscious of these challenges, but you may be specifically telling us and we will be going extra mile and trying to do that. Two things I just wanted to mention over here. ICCR is currently scanning through the textbooks that are being taught in various countries, and some 60 reports we have compiled through our heads of missions, and it's very revealing as to how India is very cursorily referred to, or the Indian values are either ignored or misrepresented and things like that. In fact, misperception about India is a big challenge, and therefore I would suggest all the NRI community members to be very articulatedly coming out on issues like, say, casteism and even the gender issues. I had come across one seminar, some declaration about a seminar in a California university some 20 years before. And you know what exactly was the subject? The subject was bride burning and son preference traditions in India. I mean, I was aghast. But this is how India is being looked at. And then who would be telling those people about the gender justice, which is again inbuilt in our Ardhanari Nateshwar concept or various other things, including the traditions of knowledge-seeking women from Gargi and Maitreyi and things like that. Of course, there are perversions. Of course, there are distortions. We cannot defend them. But the original thought, it's so very pure. and so very justice oriented that we need to be talking about very loudly. So same is about the caste system. I would suggest all of you that please don't engage and defend the caste system, because when we defend, I mean, there are a whole lot of reasons to defend the caste system. I am not disputing, I am not engaging in an academic discussion, but political correctness demands that you don't talk about defending the caste system, because the system has perverted so much that the moment we defend caste system, people suspect that we are also defending the caste conflict or caste differences or the hierarchical setup of Indian caste system. No, we are not.
Correct. So I would like to bring Omkar here, because Omkar is a PhD in sociology and extensively work on caste system in India and have heavily published. So Omkar, can you please unmute yourself?
Can it be the last question, Tushar?
Sure, Vinayji.
Thank you, Tushar. Thank you, Vinayji, for this wonderful opportunity to have an interaction with you. I am at University of Maryland, College Park, and as Tushar mentioned, I'm pursuing my PhD in sociology. And I think you alluded to this point that culture often gets portrayed and restricted only to dance forms, music, and food festivals. And I was wondering, like, how the student community on campuses can sort of interact and engage with ICCR so that we can participate in dissemination of some of the Indian ethos and values here, and in what ways basically the ICCR can support us either through sharing of resources or the activities or some sort of institutional partnerships, which I think you had mentioned some time back. But if you can also share your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Well, I can only say that ICCR is willing and wanting to take advantage of such a huge population of Indian students in several American universities and other universities as well. And therefore, if there are some concrete proposals reaching out to us, then we will definitely be responding very, very positively. But a couple of ideas which I suggested about cultural exchange or conducting a course on understanding India. And if for example, some student association and at some university wants to conduct that course, we can support with study material, with some books, with some course material as well. There are beautifully explained stories of Ramayana already on the YouTube. There is one person in Bengaluru, and he has created all these episodes on Ramayana, and they are freely available on YouTube. And so very educatively, he has explained various facets of Ramayana and this narrative that goes with it. And people in France, for example, invited him to explain to their corporate organization as to how HRD, human resource development, and the fundamentals of it are seen in the story of Ramayana. Now, in India also, I don't think whether he was invited by anybody or not, but that's a different story. My point is that we are willing, we are wanting to coordinate with student groups, whether it is cultural exchange or whether it is understanding India programs or any such thing which we would like the ICCR to be engaging in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vinayji. And I'm definitely, with the kind of energy you have talked today, I'm sure we won't leave you. You will see some emails, or your office will see definitely some proposal coming your way. So we are really, really expecting that we will get some response from your side. And as well as on behalf of the Indian overseas scholars and students community here, in US or worldwide, I would like you, whenever you are traveling, do let us know, and we would love to host you on our campuses, because we have a good campus presence, and these discussions should become part of campus activism here, because that's pretty much the way to change the entire narrative which exists around us here in the West. So thanks a lot once again, Vinayji. And for final thanking remarks, I would like to call upon Amitabh-ji. If you can please unmute yourself.
Namaskar, Vinayji. It's Amitabh Mittal from Chicago. I spoke to Ajay Shahji today. He couldn't join us. You must know him from Pennsylvania. He's a good friend of yours. And he told me, definitely, you should not miss this. This is going to be inspirational. And listening to you, I'm going back in time. And I remember in 92, when Advani ji came here, And I asked him, say, when your government will be there, will the youth of India here will get any opportunity? And the time goes by, and then I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And I heard what you said today. And I said, that thought process that we had back there is finally coming to fruition. You have to wait. Yeah, you have to wait for anything. So thank you so much, sir, for giving us the NRIs some hope that the Indian government, the ICCR will be working more closely with NRIs here, with our scholar students here. US-India Friendship Council is very thankful for you today to come here and give us this thought. We are prepared to help the ICCR in any method possible. I thank all the attendees today and the panelists for their attention, and thank you very much for joining our program. Thank you, Tushar, for really managing, being a good moderator. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Tushar, I'm just making one final point that those of you who have some ideas, suggestions, observations, or even complaints for that matter, please access my website, vinaysahasrabuddhe.in. There is a email ID as well. And do send me an email. We are more than enthusiastic to engage with you and to support whatever the ideas that you have. Thank you very much. It was wonderful talking to all of you.
Thank you, everyone.